Another jackpot.
I can't open.
No, I'll open for it, Zach.
I'll come in.
So will I. So, look out, they're on the air. 3 hello, Melbourne. The time is now Queen's or better, 2:15. We are now crossing over to the All Tremblay Hall so that you may hear the impunity singing. Now then, all together. Hello, people, everybody happy?
Yes.
That's the idea. Had your crucian, feeling bright and snappy?
Yes.
That's the idea.
Hi, I'm Sian Pryor.
And I'm Frank Van Straten.
And we're here to celebrate 75 wonderful years of 3LO.
Yes, we first went to air on the 13th of October, 1924.
1924. Now, that was the year that Cobb & Co. made their last coach run.
The first Brownlow Medal was awarded.
Cinema was still silent. The Gold Rush and The Thief of Baghdad were the big hits.
And Melbourne's population was around 900,000.
Walter Burley Griffin's spectacular Capitol Theatre in Swanston Street was opened.
And so was Tutankhamun's tomb.
And what a treasure trove that was. And what a treasure trove you've found for us, Frank.
Yes, we're sitting here surrounded by piles of dusty old tapes and 78s, some rather scratchy, I'm afraid, to help us tell the story of 3LO.
Of course, 75 years is a long time and we can't cover it all. So let's concentrate on some of the outstanding personalities, the most popular programs and the special events that we've covered.
Yes, our opening night was pretty special. A speech by the Prime Minister Stanley Bruce, followed by a live broadcast of Dame Nellie Melba's farewell appearance in La Boheme, relayed directly from Her Majesty's Theatre. 2FC in Sydney was the first station in Australia, and 3AR was the first station on air in Melbourne, but it was not a success. It was soon overtaken by 3LO.
We took our call sign from 2LO in London, which was hardly original.
And back then we were a commercial station, owned by a partnership between the theatrical entrepreneurs J.C. Williamsons and J&N Tate, the department store Buckley and Nunn, the Herald Sun organisation, and Farmer and Company, who ran 2FC in Sydney.
Our first studios were in Collins Street, in the heart of the city.
And you could buy your wireless set at the Edison shop, just a few doors away.
The Edison shop is always to the fore with the latest scientific achievements. Just look at our radio sets here, either portable or all electric. These sets can be tested and tried in your own home without obligation. They are very reasonably priced and obtainable on very easy terms. Look over the Western Grey portable radio set on the counter. You simply open the door and listen in. The Western Grey portable is entirely self-contained, no aerial or earth required. Observe that tone is unique, with not a trace of harshness, but always natural. The Western Grey portable radio is guaranteed with free service for 12 months. In fact, the accumulator will be charged free of cost for the first 3 months. Ask for a demonstration at your own home. The news medium is radio.
In those early days, our programs weren't continuous. We were on and off air all day.
There were live singers and musicians, recitations, concerts by cinema orchestras, weather reports, stock market news, readings from the daily papers and talks.
Here are some snippets from some very early broadcasts, starting with the early morning physical jerks.
Extend the arms at arm's length back of the head. At the count of 1, throw the arms forward. At the same time, rise to a sitting position, touching the toes if possible. Inhale on the way up. At the count of 2, return to starting position. Exhale on the way down. Ready. Begin. 1, 2. Up, down.
Well, you must know that my brother John was courting a girl named Suey. He took Suey to the seaside to sue for Suey's hand. He sat by her side, she sat by his side, he sighed, she sighed on the wind side, and there they sat sighing side by side. She sighed for cider. He left the place he had beside her to get the cider, but she no sooner got the cider inside her than she lay down and died her. And he drank some cider and he died, and the verdict was he died by Suey's side.
Good. Fancy of the overflow. I had written him a letter, which I had for want of better knowledge, sent to where I met him down the Lachlan years ago. He was shearing when I knew him, so I sent the letter to him just on spec, addressed as follows: Clancy of the Overflow. and an answer came directed in a writing unexpected.
Oh, it was terribly formal in English.
Novelty was everything, even bird imitations from a gentleman who called himself Imito.
Mofo.
Imito was brought in to add appropriate atmosphere to this song about the Australian bush. The singer is Jacqueline Remont.
In 1925, we presented the first play ever broadcast on Australian radio, The Barbarous Barber, presented with the assistance of the Buckley and Nunn Orchestra.
Listeners sat in horror as they heard Mrs. Lovett confront Sweeney Todd.
You carrion crow, I'll fight you to the end.
Put down that knife.
Never.
Then your fate is on your own head. Now, me fine lady, me razor is sharp, and your throat is nice and white. That's polished her off. Last blood to me, Mrs. Lovett. So you throw my rotten carcass into that furnace, eh? A good idea. That shall be your fate. Now to open the door. Cha! How hot it is. So in you go. In you go. How she burns and crackles. A foretaste of hell for you, Mrs. Lovett.
3LO also had the distinction of being the first Australian radio station to broadcast a concert.
Here's Sir Bernard Heinz, who for so long was associated with ABC music making, recalling our original studios, and Major Walter Conder, our first general manager.
It was at that time that Wally Conder got in touch with me, and he said, Bernard, I got an idea about for 3LO. He said, would you like to come down tonight and make a noise for an hour? So I said, well, Wally, I will. I'll come down. And so Lindsay Biggins, who was a pianist in those days, he and I went down to the studio, 3LO, just next to the Argus offices. Well, we had a great time. We played for an hour, and lots of people rang me up and said, oh, it was marvellous, really marvellous. We heard everything that there was. Well, this started the thing going. And then he said to me one day, look, let's get a bit bigger. Would you like to bring the orchestra down? So I said, all right. I went down. We gave a concert down in this dreadful studio that was hung from the floor to the ceiling with great carpets and wadding and gosh knows what. When you spoke in there, you felt as if the sound that you were speaking just emerged from your mouth and was then struck off. You know, it was as dead as that. However, we went in, and I understand, I make no wild claims about it, but we understood that this was the first concert to be broadcast in the Southern Hemisphere.
In 1928, 3LO and 3AR joined forces as what were called A-class stations under the management of the Dominion Broadcasting Company.
And in 1929, we were taken over by the Australian Broadcasting Company.
That year we covered our first election, the federal election of November 1929. Here are the voices of the Prime Minister, Stanley Bruce, and his principal opponent, Billy Hughes.
The government's desire is to maintain and advance both the wages and the standard of living which has been built up in this country. Many of the extremist leaders of Labour welcome the confusion, unrest, and class hatred engendered by the present system. The names of these men have been prominent in connection with all the recent industrial disturbances.
The basic principle of representative government, that the men elected to represent the people shall be bound by the pledges they have given to the people, is destroyed. For when men cease to do this, representative government becomes a hollow sham. What does it matter what Mr. Bruce and his followers say? For they are men to whom no pledge is sacred.
And for the record, the Bruce government was returned.
Early wireless was fair game for comedians. 3LO was good-naturedly sent up by Rupert Hazell, a popular visiting English comic touring Australia on the Tivoli circuit.
3LO Melbourne, we are now changing over to the Spencer Street Bridge so that you may hear the work in progress at that hive of industry, and as we listen into the sounds of honest labour, every good Australian will thrill with pride. What price did you get, Jim?
5 to 4, and the cow ran like a hairy goat. By the way, Harry, when's this bridge supposed to be finished?
1968, they say.
Some hope.
1929 brought the Great Depression.
Radio was especially important as it provided listeners with morale-boosting, free entertainment. Community singing was a popular way to help relieve depression worries.
We're going to sing Pack Up Your Troubles in Your Old Kit Bag. I'm sure you won't have forgotten the words.
Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, 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 while you will lose your life.
On July the 1st, 1932, 3LO and 3AR became the Melbourne outlets of the newly established ABC.
Our commitment was to inform, educate and entertain.
This is the Australian Broadcasting Commission, relaying throughout Australia the opening night of the newly constituted Australian Broadcasting Commission.
By now we'd moved to larger studios in Melbourne Lane off Russell Street.
Here's Dr. A.E. Floyd, who contributed so much to musical life in Melbourne and was still on the air at the age of 95, remembering his first broadcasts from the new studios, which were upstairs in a building that's still there. It's now the home of the Kelvin Club.
I began by doing Friday mornings at 9:10, and in those days I didn't drive a car. I had to go in by train or tram or bus, and I got there at 9:30, to the terrifying of Miss Janet Mitchell. Her father was a well-known barrister, I think, and she used to sit by me at the grand piano in the studio nearly opposite Scottish Church in the side street. What is that? I went up a little alleyway with a shop from which I averted the eye because the shop window showed ladies' underclothing, which made me feel very shy if I'd by mistake glanced at it.
We now had a top-class studio dance orchestra led by Cecil Fraser. The 12 musicians included George Dobson on trumpet, Dick Bentley on tenor sax, Bernie Duggan on piano, and Macduff Williams on clarinet.
Here they are with Jack O'Hagan doing the vocals.
While we're drifting, dreaming under the pale Baldur moon, hearts are scheming under the pale Baldur moon. There in our love boat, night's precious hours pass all too soon, while we're drifting, dreaming under the pale
the first station to broadcast the Melbourne Cup.
That was in 1932, and our commentator was Eric Welsh.
It's about the 2 furlong post. There's little between Induna and moving up well on the rails, Bo Nilly and then Rodgiller and Peter Pan coming into it. Oh, Uramba will bolt in. He's come round the outside of the field and looks to have them all well beaten. Uramba wins it all right. He's coming away from Peter Pan, who's finishing on a bit strongly. No, Peter Pan might get there. It's going to Peter Pan will win it. Peter Pan will win it. Peter Pan wins from Uramba with Shadow King third.
A few weeks later, 3LO listeners heard the voice of King George V when we carried the first of the Royal Christmas broadcasts.
The tradition still continues, but here's a brief excerpt from the very first in 1932.
Through one of the marvels of modern science, I am enabled this Christmas Day to speak to all my peoples throughout the empire. I take it as a good omen that wireless should have reached its present perfection at a time when the empire has been linked in closer union. For it offers us immense possibilities to make that union closer still. I speak now from my home and from my heart to you all.
The King sent his son, Henry, Duke of Gloucester, as his representative for the celebrations of Victoria's 100th birthday in 1934.
3LO was there to cover the scene on the steps of Parliament House.
This is Victoria's 100th birthday, and her people are all gathered here, apparently, in Melbourne, for the most brilliant and most lavish pageant of the century. To welcome His Royal Highness Prince Henry, Duke of Gloucester, whom you are going to hear officially opening these centenary celebrations.
In charging me with this mission, the King gave me the following message to deliver to you. It has given me great pleasure to send my son to represent me at the opening of the celebrations which are being held to commemorate the centenary of the settlement of the state of Victoria and of the founding of the city of Melbourne. I have much pleasure in declaring the centenary celebrations open.
Now the royal party is still on the dais in front of the Houses of Parliament, and a royal salute of 21 guns being fired.
In those days, British-style formality was very much part of broadcasting.
It's true that announcers wore dinner suits even to read the news. This formality even invaded sports broadcasting.
Here's an extract from our coverage of the 1937 test at the MCG. Listen to the way Norman McCants introduces Charles Moses, then doubling as our general manager and one of the commentary team.
With the score 1-4-79, extras 2, Hartstaff 25, Worthington 34, Mr. Moses will continue with further description.
The Australians on the field in two groups. A group clustered around McCormick and O'Reilly, who were responsible for the dismissal of Hardstaff, and another group with the wicketkeeper and Wyatt. And a couple of
but for listeners, the greatest thrill came after the match.
And now that the rubber has been decided, we have pleasure in introducing the captain of the Australian 11, Don Bradman, the man of the moment.
This was easily the worst moment of Test cricket. We don't mind playing before you in the middle, but we become very nervous when it is a question of speaking. However, I would like to say that we are naturally delighted to have won. It has been a very hard series, keenly fought, but at the same time we have tried very jealously to guard the best traditions of cricket, and I think you will agree that we have succeeded. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, come on, everyone. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'd better give Don Bradman 3 jolly good cheers. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray!
We were so committed to cricket that when the tests were overseas, we developed synthetic descriptions based on frequent cables, imaginary studio descriptions and inventive sound effects.
The results were so realistic that listeners found it hard to believe that they weren't hearing the real thing.
It's a short ball. Bradman moves back and pulls fiercely past square leg. Hutton running well from deep fine leg has no chance as the ball goes under the ropes for another 4. That's 4 more to Bradman, taking his score to 97, a typical Bradman shot, giving the fieldsman no chance of saving the boundary. Now Ames throws the ball back to Farnes.
Melbourne became a centre for ABC drama production.
Producers like Frank Clulow and John Cairns set very high standards.
Here's an example from 1937.
The Australian Broadcasting Commission presents Unit 3 of tonight's programme, Belinda. An April followed by A.A. Milne, adapted for radio by Max Appen, and featuring Nancy Stewart as Belinda.
Betty? Are you there, Betty? Yes, madam. Would you come into the garden for a minute? Yes, madam? Oh, Betty, I'm sorry to call you out, but having got into this hammock, I find I can't get out. I should have served in the Navy for practice. Can I help you, madam? Yes. Now, those books on the table, would you hand them to me? Mr. Devonish's book of poems. Yes, The Lute of Love. That's right. And that magazine of reviews. This green one, madam? Thank you. Mr. Baxter has an article in it. The Rise of Lunacy in the Eastern Countries.
If you please, madam, Cook would like to speak with you for a minute.
Oh, all right, I'll come.
Yes, madam.
That was the notable Australian actress Nancy Stewart.
And probably Imito helping with the sound effects.
We maintained our commitment to educate and uplift with some pretty serious music programs, and we brought many international concert artists to Australia, among them Ezio Pinza, Arthur Rubinstein, Malcolm Sargent, Richard Tauber, and the great German soprano Lotte Lehmann.
Here's Miss Lehmann in an extraordinary conversation with our general manager, Charles Moses.
You didn't expect to find us a whole lot of Aborigines, did you?
Oh, no. No, I have written a little bit about you, read a little bit about you. And I have known that a country influenced by your English homeland.
Mm-hmm.
That I have known.
Have you seen any Aborigines since
No, that was the only disappointment.
The only disappointment?
Only.
Now that's the telephone.
But of course it was the lighter music shows that were the most popular.
Here's a 3LO show from 1937 with Colin Crane and the boys trying very hard to sound American.
We have pleasure in again presenting From the Hillbilly Cabin, arranged by Reginald Stoneham.
On the trail of the lonesome pine.
As the door of the hillbilly cabin opens and I take me seat on the old step, I see the moon a-sailing across the blue sky, a-heading for a bank of darkening clouds. Soon she'll be through 'em and come out a-smiling on the other side, bigger and brighter than ever. So it is with us humans down here. If we keep a straight course, we'll clear the clouds of trouble and come out bright and smiling, just like that old man in that there moon.
On the trail of the lonesome pine.
Let's have some songs to brighten the night.
About this time, a young New Zealand singer started to charm listeners to 3LO. His name was Jack Davey.
Keep young and beautiful, it's your duty to be beautiful. Keep young and beautiful, if you wanna be loved. Don't fail to do your stuff with a little powder and a puff. Keep young and beautiful, if you wanna be loved. If you're wise, exercise all the fat off.
Jack Davey later found fame as a quizmaster on commercial radio, as did his friendly rival Bob Dyer. But Bob Dyer too got his start at 3LO.
I presented the first quiz show and awarded the first prizes that were ever given on the ABC in a regular feature. It was called Bob Dyer's Country Store.
Presenting the last of the hillbillies, Bob Dyer, with his mountain men. And here he is.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have I ever told you folks about Maury's girl? Maury's got a girl. Where's Maury, the old devil? He's got a girl that lives in the bush. This'll kill you. Last summer, she's sort of a mother's girl, Maury's girlfriend is, and last summer was the first time that Maury's girlfriend's mother, that's complicated, ain't it? It's the first time she ever let her daughter go away on a holiday by herself. And before she left to come down to the city, her mother said, now listen, darling, I know you're going to see Maury when you get down to the city, and I want you to be very careful because you know how mother worries. Don't let Maury hug you because you know how mother worries. And don't let him kiss you because you know how mother worries. And she said, above all things, don't let him come to your room because you know how mother worries. That's it, girls. Now, wait a minute. Finally, she came down. She spent 2 weeks in the city, and she and Maury had a lovely time. And when she got home, her mother said, well, did you have a nice time in the city? She says, yes, Mother, I saw my boyfriend. I saw Maury like you said, but I didn't let him hug me because I know, Mother, how you worry. And I didn't let him kiss me because I know, Mother, how you worry. And she said, I didn't let him come to my room. I went to his room. Let his mother worry.
And then, on the 3rd of September 1939, 3LO listeners heard this.
Thank you, members of the Coburg City Band. Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this network broadcast to hear an urgent message from the Prime Minister, Mr. R.G. Menzies.
It is my melancholy duty to inform you officially that in consequence of a persistence by Germany in her invasion of Poland, Great Britain has declared war upon her, and that as a result Australia is also at war.
In April 1942, 3LO and 3AR moved to new studios at Broadcast House on the corner of William and Lonsdale Streets.
There were special underground facilities in case of air raids.
We certainly did our share in assisting the recruiting drive.
Here is an interview between Sergeant James Morgan, a storekeeper on an RAAF station, who is handing over to Corporal Eileen Rayson.
Good morning, Corporal. So you're the new custodian of the spares and pieces?
Yes, Sergeant. I believe that's the idea.
Good. I want to thank you for taking over my job. Several of us have had our applications in for aircrew for 12 months now. But of course we knew the work so well here, they couldn't let us go. They couldn't replace us. Now you've come along and I'm off to do my flying training at last. And girl, am I delighted. You're the best pal I know, although you've only been here 10 minutes. By the way, what prompted you to join up?
Well, you're going to do a real man's job. I wanted to do a real woman's job. I can't fly, of course, at least not in combat, but I can help you to do so. I admit I was just an everyday city girl, but even a city girl can appreciate the marvelous freedom of our Australian existence. The black nightmare of Japanese invasion made me realize the danger our country was in.
Tell me, what appealed to you about the WAF?
Well, I've always been interested in the work of the Air Force. I wanted to be near the planes, the engines, the technical work, in any capacity. One of my pals has taken up cooking, and another has joined up as a telephone operator.
Good on 'em. Well, here we are. I'll go through this inventory with you.
And so we see how the men of the RAAF admire the spirit of the Women's Auxiliary Australian Air Force. As more and more girls with the same loyalty and initiative come forward, the greater will be the striking power of the RAAF.
We have pleasure in presenting the Women's Auxiliary Australian Air Force Choir, featuring their popular theme song, Girls in the Air Force Blue.
Girls of all England have shown
across the way. And the girls of the free land, they're marching today. Why, they're marching to victory, and the road may be long. Now let's make it shorter, just by singing the song. Put on the Air Force blue, girls. Put on the Air Force blue. March with the others, and wear like your brothers the wings of honor too. Put on the Air Force blue, girls. Everyone knows that it's true. Why, freedom recruits them, Australia salutes them, the girls in the Air Force blue.
Peggy Brooks, the WAF Choir, the ABC Dance Band, conducted by Dennis Collinson.
Radio was especially important to youngsters. In 1940, we carried a message to the children of the Empire from 14-year-old Princess Elizabeth, the future Queen, and her little sister Margaret.
When peace comes, remember, it will be for us, the children of today, to make the world of tomorrow a better and happier place. My sister is by my side, and we are both going to say good night to you. Come on, Margaret. Good night, children. Good night, and good luck to you all.
That children's session theme dates from the 1940s. Before that, there were various wireless uncles and aunties. Our very early children's session was conducted by Little Miss Kookaburra, assisted by Bobby Bluegum, Mary Gumleaf and Billy Bunny.
But perhaps the best remembered element of the ABC children's session was the Argonauts Club, which was launched on 3LO back in the early 1930s.
Row, row, merry oarsmen row, that dangers lie ahead. We know, but bend with all your might as you sail into the night, and wrong will bow to right, Jason cry, adventure no, Argonauts row, row, row.
Hello, Argonauts. Good rowing.
Good rowing, Argonauts.
And for our very young listeners, there was Kindergarten of the Air with Anne Dreyer.
Good morning, all you little girls. And good morning, all you little boys. And good morning, everybody else who is listening with us today. Who's feeling bright and happy this morning? Let me see your happy, smiling faces then. Big smiles? Yes, I can see you have nice, white, shining teeth. Well, are you all ready to play some games with me this morning? Stand up, then. Stand up where you have plenty of room in front of your radio. Now, you ready? Because we're going for a ride on our horses. You get on your horse and let's go galloping, galloping, clippity-clop. Are you ready to ride on your horse? Come along, then. Galloping, galloping, clippity-clop, clippity-clippity, clippity-clop.
In 1941, listeners heard for the first time a 3LO produced program that would become the most loved of all the Melbourne-produced shows. It would last for an incredible 29 years.
It was the Village Glee Club, a weekly wireless get-together where good friends sang favourite old ballads and chorus songs. Even today, the theme has the power to evoke warm memories for older listeners.
The ABC presents the 1177th of the weekly series, The Village Glee Club.
For almost all its run, the cast of the Village Glee Club included Colin Crane as the genial conductor Mr. Crump. We heard him previously in Hillbilly Cabin.
His friendly greeting to the Glee Club singers became a popular catchphrase.
Let us proceed, shall we?
Go right ahead, Horace.
Then to our opening choral item, everybody. Watch my beat, please. Thank you.
Bristol City's grand and gay. Sacramento, Sacramento. ships go small and great, in and out by the Golden Gate, by the Golden Gate.
Early in 1945, the Duke of Gloucester returned to Australia to take up his appointment as Governor-General of the Commonwealth.
We were there to cover his arrival.
This is Tapley Timms broadcasting from the Melbourne Town Hall. For hours past, people have been assembling in the streets of Melbourne, and there's an enormous crowd gathered here. Of course, as this is one of the focal points of the day, the crowd here is perhaps more dense than it would be elsewhere in the city. All along the railings are youngsters just behind the barricades, many of them with flags. Behind them are their mothers, their sisters, and their aunts.
I just caught a glimpse of the Duchess. She's wearing blue, a lovely shade of blue with a little blue hat. She obviously likes small hats. And she's carrying a gorgeous bouquet of roses that the Lady Mayoress has just presented to her. And now they're going off.
The Duchess and I are extremely grateful for the cordial welcome which you extend to us both. We are keenly looking forward to carrying out our duties in the Commonwealth and to our visits to your very beautiful city. I remember with the greatest pleasure my previous visit to Melbourne in 1934, when you were celebrating your centenary. 10 years have now passed since that visit, and 5 of those years have been years of war. During that period, no city in the Empire has shown more loyalty or has given better service than the city of Melbourne. I would like to congratulate your citizens on their splendid war effort. Let us pray that the time may not be far distant when our loved ones will return and we shall all live in our homes in peace and happiness once more.
When the war is over, what will then remain? Will the threads we made be broken? Was it all in vain? When the wrongs are righted in your land and mine, comrades all united, won't life then be fine? Now my heart is singing in the sun and rain, some tomorrow how I love you when we meet again.
Fellow citizens, the war is over. The Japanese government has accepted the terms of surrender imposed by the Allied nations, and hostilities will now cease.
And so the war was over.
The ABC presents Blue Hills by Gwen Meredith.
Blue Hills, one of the ABC's most beloved programs. It started in 1949 and lasted until 1976. That's 5,795 episodes.
Blue Hills was produced in our Sydney studios, along with other popular post-war shows like the ABC Hit Parade with Jim Gussie and the ABC Dance Band, and the Clive Amadio and Fred Hartley programs.
In Melbourne, we specialised in drama and in light music productions.
For half an hour of music that's easy on the ear, a program of tunes both old and new, we invite you to join us for George Dobson's Trumpet Serenade.
in Down Melody Lane, we've been listening to Egidio Bertoli and his ensemble. And now, to the strains of their theme tune, Gay Picador, they bid you farewell until next time.
Soft lights and sweet music. Halfway round the clock with Macduff Williams and the ABC Variety Orchestra in a mood of mid-evening leisure. Soft lights and sweet music with Jeff Brooks spotting the featured ballads and Tom Horton calling the tune.
Jeff Brooke was one of our most popular local singers. The same Jeff Brooke who, of course, many years later conducted a long-running fishing show on 3LO.
Here's Jeff with the ABC Melbourne Dance Orchestra under the baton of Macduff Williams.
You sing all day, and your song is so gay, for the world is ablaze with your love. You're in love when her lips meet yours, and emotion soars. You're in
Of course, we continued with our commitment to the great classics.
You're tuned to the ABC from 3LO and VNR 6. The time is 8 o'clock.
From the Melbourne Town Hall, we are about to broadcast the performance by the Royal Melbourne Philharmonic Society and the Victorian Symphony Orchestra under the direction of Sir Bernard Hines of Bach's St. Matthew Passion. The soloists are Patricia Moore, soprano, Florence Taylor, contralto, Godfrey Sterling, tenor, Leslie Cox, baritone, and Robert Payne, baritone. The applause is for the leader of the orchestra, Betha Jorgensen.
Here's a live concert broadcast that might have been better handled, along with some other gems from the archives.
A very good afternoon, everyone, and we bid you welcome to our theatrette here in the A&P building in Melbourne. This is our Wednesday lunch hour piano recital, and we do welcome you sincerely to our, well, for the next half hour, music by our pianist, who is Mr. Mac Yost. So I'd like to introduce you to him, Mr. Mac Yost, our pianist. And he's a delightful gentleman. I've been chatting to him before the program, and he's really a sincerely nice man. We have a program by varying artists this afternoon. Chopin is the first, which of course is French.
I've said from the very beginning that New Zealand will take any practical and effective measures to protest. But I've also opposed impractical and ineffective measures.
So what is your opinion of the action that's being taken by postal workers in Australia not to handle French letters?
French letters? Well, that's an unusual question, isn't it? Quite frankly, I think it's most not likely to be effective at all.
Now the Victorian news read by Ian Blakey. The inquest into the Southern Aurora rail smash was told in Melbourne today that the driver of the express, Mr. John Bowden, was dead before the accident. The senior Victorian government pathologist, Mr. James McNamara, said Bowden, aged 52, of Wodonga, had died from heart failure and not from his injuries. The pathologist said it was impossible to say how long before the crash that Bowden had died. He said that it was possible that he remained seated in the same position without anyone else being aware that anything else was but alive. The city coroner, Mr. Pascoe, is holding inquests on 9 people who died when the Southern Aurora and a goods train crashed head-on near the northern Victorian town of Violet Town on February the 17th.
We regret this interruption to the news. It will be continued in a moment.
The news in brief.
The Prime Minister, Mr. McMahon, arrived back in Australia today after his overseas tour. He told newsmen at Sydney Airport that he could not have had more valuable discussions with both President Nixon and the British Prime Minister, Mr. Heath.
What about Spike Milligan?
But he refused to give details of the discussions before he had spoken in the House.
What about Spike Milligan?
Mr. McMahon also refused to comment when asked about criticism of him by two former ministers, Mr. Gorton and Mr. Killen.
And Spike Milligan?
The Prime Minister was met at the airport by his two children
And
members of the Cabinet, including the Treasurer, Mr. Snedden, and Spike Milligan. Australia's national international airline Qantas has been awarded a trophy by the British Guild of Air Pilots and Navigators for its safety record.
And 33 crashes.
Qantas is the second Australian airline to win the Cumberbatch Trophy. TAA won it in 1958. The Australian Post Office is doing good business in the United States.
What?
An agent for the post office in New York says sales of stamps to collectors could bring in $200,000 in the first year of business. More news in 1 hour.
You'll never make it.
Oh dear. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The visit of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh in 1954 was covered by a pool of commentators from national and commercial stations all over Australia.
3LO brought eyewitness descriptions to the few people who were not actually crowding the streets to wave a welcome to the royal couple.
It's absolutely going wild. You can see the entire mass of people become activated into frantic motion as flags wave, hands wave, and their voices raise in a welcome to Her Majesty and His Royal Highness. And there they are, saluting in that graceful way. Her Majesty wearing her lovely white hat and looking the picture of charming summer days. Listen to the welcome.
Radio coverage of the Melbourne Olympics in 1956 was a similarly massive operation.
Here's Michael Charlton describing the arrival of the Olympic torch.
We have the name of the runner. His name is Ron Clark. He's a Victorian and he holds the Australian record for the junior mile. And it's his great privilege and honour to bear the Olympic torch around the full length of the arena. Now the runner has reached the entrance to the eastern terrace and he begins to mount his way towards the sacred bowl where the flame will be lit. The runner is approaching the bowl. The flame is held high. And the Olympic flame is alight.
But we didn't have coverage of the Olympic Games all to ourselves. There was a lively new kid on the block.
Yes, television had arrived and radio had to change.
So, on the 28th of July 1963, in an effort to meet the challenge, the ABC introduced what it called New Rad. It was essentially a realignment of 3LO and 3AR.
Many listeners found the change annoying and confusing, especially as the newfangled transistor radios didn't have the old call signs, only mysterious numbers, which had not been in general use up until then.
This is reflected in a conversation between Terry Lane and Sandy Stone, one of Barry Humphrey's alter egos, in 1990.
Do you still have the Stromberg-Carlson?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Was the Stromberg-Carlson just a wireless, or was it a radiogram?
It was a radiogram.
Was a radiogram.
You know, I don't think a lot of the young of today would know what a radiogram was. But it was a piece of furniture. It wasn't just a wireless. And you could get the radio stations on one side, and on the other side was the record player, which was adapted for microgrooves.
Yes, and in those days, of course, it did actually have the signs of the radio stations on the dial, so that if you were looking for 3LO, you could find 3LO, or if you were looking for 2BL, you could find it. It wasn't not this number stuff.
Terry, you've really put your finger on it there, because you knew where you were. You'd turn the knob and the little needle would move along, and you'd be the station of your choice. If the kiddies wanted to listen to the Argonauts, then you'd put it on 3AR. Now, for some reason, 3AR is the highbrow station and 3LO is the lowbrow station. That's very confusing for people of my generation. But we may be losing a lot of the younger people listening who'd think we're talking a lot of twaddle.
Radio became less formal. New personalities emerged and talkback radio made its debut.
Sometimes taking talkback is like walking a tightrope. Let's tune into John Reed and Dr. Jack Airby taking pet care calls.
Richard of Geelong has a cat that's losing its hair, John.
Good morning, Richard.
Hi, Dr. John. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thanks very much for your program. I think it's terrific the way you give up your time.
Oh, thank you.
Look, I've got two problems. Firstly, my pussy is losing its hair, especially around the sides. And secondly, it's very cold all over. What do you think we could do?
When you say it's cold, how do you know it's cold, Richard?
Well, when you feel it on the sides and on the front, it always feels cold. It doesn't seem to be as warm as some of the other ones that we've had.
Right. Richard, if it's losing its hair and it's on both sides, you say?
Yes, both sides and especially around the lips.
Yep, I would say you've got a hormone problem there.
Right.
And there are some tablets which you can use which will help that cat. The other is, and that should make the hair grow back. You can make a little, if you're worried about the temperature of your cat,
Yes.
you can actually get a little coat for the cat, and that's quite acceptable.
Right. Thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you, Richard.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I don't know how you keep a straight face. Here's Jenny of Rosanna. Her budgie's got diarrhoea.
There were often eyebrows raised when Graham Kennedy joined Richard Coombe on the 3LO drive time shift. It was pure anarchy.
5:05. Good afternoon, Graham.
Good afternoon, my little Dickie, because that's what you are. You are my little Dickie.
You're my little gay, so that's lovely.
Little gay?
Yes.
It's gay-gay. I told you the story. The little girl couldn't say Graham. No, but a lot of people might be just arrived from America and they might know what that means.
Little gay.
Little gay.
And I shorten things a lot, so little gay.
All right.
Righto.
Yes, and here we are on Melbourne's Hello. It's 5:06, and we couldn't be more delighted. This is our fourth, last day together, and I'm sentimental about it.
I get a little sentimental over you.
Do you really?
Yes.
You little treasure.
I know. Very nice television program last night, Graham.
What was?
The Don Lane program.
Oh, I was on that?
Yes.
I was on that?
It's the only reason I watched it.
Oh, now that's unfair. Don always listens to you. 5:08 now. Oh, I'm glad you liked there's something creeping up under me, Dick. I mean, there's not something... Oh, dear, I'll get off, I think, while I'm behind.
In 1983, the Australian Broadcasting Commission came to an end.
It was left to Peter Evans to formally introduce the new Australian Broadcasting Corporation on his breakfast session at the start of transmission on the 1st of July.
I think the significance of the occasion was a bit lost on Peter.
You'll be glad to know, ladies and gentlemen, that a lyrebird has laid an egg at the Healesville Sanctuary, and they'll be having eggs and bacon out there this morning. Oh, folks, it's 5:01. ABC testing on this last day of the Australian Broadcasting Commission. What are we now? A corporation, Australian Broadcasting Corporation, like the BBC, instead of a commission, I see. And is it going to make any difference to our lives? Not the slightest. 1-5. They're still going to be underpaid, overfed, and incompetent.
Peter Evans' breakfast session was heard nationally for some years.
He was one of the most loved personalities that the ABC ever had.
I've just had a letter from Clio magazine. My body has been rejected. You ever seen one of those letters? Dear sir, your name has been submitted to us with your photo, and I regret to inform you that we will be unable to use your body in our centrefold. You ever seen one of these? It's like the odd, it's just a gag. Ha ha, I hope, said he, hopefully. On a scale of 8 to 10, your body was rated 2 by our panel of women, ranging in ages from 60 to 75. We tried to assemble a panel of 21 to 35-year-olds, but we couldn't get them to stop laughing long enough to reach a decision. So in the meantime, don't call us, we would call you. P.S. We do commend you on your unnatural pose. Were you wounded in the war? Were you playing sport, or do you ride a bike a lot? You like that one?
We suffered a double blow in 1985 when not only Peter Evans died, but also another popular 3LO broadcaster, former musical comedy star Michael Cole.
Here's what happened when Michael asked the late Frank Thring what his favourite part had been.
My favourite, I think of all of them, this was the most difficult, was Harold Pinter's The Homecoming, in which I played a Cockney butcher of 75 who has a heart attack while he's trying to screw his daughter-in-law. And that really wasn't quite the Frank Thring image at the time, you know, because one had been doing Man Who Came to Dinner and Present Laughter and all those sort of Roman epics and things.
Of course, I suppose that you've probably played character parts since your very earliest days, because you've always sort of looked, as you said, you've looked like Henry VIII. Ever since I've known you, you've hardly changed at all over the last 20 years. Most of us aged gracefully from a sweet young thing that I was when you critted me years ago. I'll never forget that. Mr. Cole, no, not as pretty as Miss Blacklock. I've never forgotten that crit, Frank.
I'm glad I made some impression.
It's still in my scrapbook.
So many great personalities have come through our studios through the years.
Long-distance runner Cliff Young, for instance. Here he's confiding in Paul Barber about his marriage problems.
A friend of mine earlier today was callous enough to suggest that this whole split of you and Mary was just a nasty little publicity stunt to publicise the Westfield run.
No way, no, this is fair dinkum.
You're assuring us that in fact is...
Yeah, that's a lot of crap.
It is that they say it was. That's your words, is it?
Yeah, that's not right.
Yeah,
no,
there's absolutely no element of truth to that
this is
whatsoever.
pretty serious.
Is it?
Yeah, pretty serious, this lot.
Well, what are you laughing for?
You're laughing at me. I've got to...
I don't know. We should be taking this a lot more.
Well,
So I hope
mean,
Mary's not listening to this.
There'll
be no hope of a reconciliation if she's been listening to what you've been saying the last couple of minutes.
Oh, no, I hope she's not listening.
Here are two more popular personalities from the 1980s. This is part of John Amy's final broadcast, and he's got his successor, Barbara Horn, on the phone.
Now, Nurse Barbara, one of the highlights of this program has been the Dr. Jack joke book, and a lot of people said, is it going to continue?
Well, unfortunately not. I had thought of promoting myself to doctor and having a male nurse.
That'll be you.
But I just feel that there's no one that does it as beautifully as you and I do it, Dr. Jack.
We do it well, don't we? Well, let's do it for the final time, even if we are doing it over the phone.
Okay, then.
Okay. You've got your script over there, haven't you?
I do, thank you.
Okay, stand by. Here we go. You're first, remember?
Right.
Right.
Jack, Dr. Jack.
Yes, Nurse Barbara. Yes, Nurse Barbara.
There's a man trying to climb into my bedroom window, and I wanted to call the fire brigade immediately.
A man trying to climb into your bedroom window, Nurse Barbara, but surely you want me to call the police?
No, Dr. Jack, I mean the fire brigade. He needs a ladder.
Oh, Nurse Barbara, thank you, and goodbye.
Very good luck to you, John.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We always reflected life in Melbourne, the good and the bad, the ups and the downs.
As witness this clip from the Doug Aiton program, with John Hindle grumbling about a less than exciting Moomba parade.
Anyway, there we were in Swanston Walk, which I kept waiting for a tram to go through because that's my experience of Swanston Walk, and it didn't throughout the entire event. But on the other hand, things that I didn't want to see did go through. And I shouldn't just be knocking the Moomba parade, but really, can we please give it up unless we can do it right?
I've got problems with my throat now, John, excuse me.
Would you like me to talk for a while?
No,
I'll have a little
it's all right.
chat
I'm back. But just walking along in the street for the sake of walking along is something that I find very difficult to get excited about.
Yes, well, I don't think I'll bother again. That is to say, watching the Moomba parade. If it continues, please do it better. I'll help in any way I can, much as you would with any sick person.
Ralph Rickman was a popular music presenter. In this clip, he's heard with the grand old man of Australian popular music.
That was the ABC show band playing Along the Road to Gundagai. Anyone who's at all familiar with the Australian popular song, going back a decade or more, maybe 4 or 5, will know that that one was written by the legendary Jack O'Hagan. And we have Jack on the phone with us right now. Jack, that wasn't exactly like the original, was it?
Well, it was interesting. As a matter of fact, I thought they were playing our song.
Yes, well, I suppose as long as the royalty checks keep coming in, you're not going to quibble about it.
Not a bit, Ralph. You can do it as much as you like.
Jack, I've just wondered if you wrote, today I suppose the thing is to write for a particular performer. Songwriters back in the 30s, how did you operate? Did you just write and hope that someone would be interested?
Oh, yes, I was very fortunate in the sense that I had people like, well, even the great Richard Tauber, the first song he ever sang in English was one of mine, and then Gracie Fields, and I was terribly fortunate with all the singers, the top ones of their day, This is before the Crosby, Sinatra, etc. And from then onwards, I've practically dropped right out of it. Anyhow, I had 30-odd years of being right in it, and thank God they're still playing my songs.
Do you still get the checks through the mail?
Yes, sure.
Another expert on vintage music was Graham Evans.
Yes, Graham contributed his knowledge and his huge record collection to the popular Sentimental Journey program, introduced by John West.
John West here with more of Sentimental Journey. And it's welcome once again to Graham Evans and his personal slant on the music of nostalgia.
Hello again. Well, this is to be my final contribution to Sentimental Journey after almost 24 years. So let's get straight into the music with one of George Formby's best-known recordings, with backing by Jack Hilton and his orchestra. Here's George in 1932, experiencing those Chinese laundry blues.
We mustn't forget about another music guru, Dick Williams. Here he's talking on the phone to stage star Jill Perryman.
Now, I labelled you, when we were talking about you a little bit earlier on, I believe that you could have been, or still are really, I suppose, in some senses, Australia's Ethel Merman, because you have that ability to belt out a song, but unlike her, you can sing softly and sweetly and most dramatically, may I say.
I thank you for that lovely compliment. When I started out, Ethel Merman was the big Broadway star.
Exactly.
And I suppose I was influenced by her. I was also influenced by Mary Martin.
Will you stop answering questions I haven't asked yet?
Oh, all right, I'll stop. And also Barbara Streisand, you see. So I think what one does that most of the young people do, they glean from the big stars and then eventually come out with their own sort of style.
Yeah. Well, they've all melted together beautifully, thank you.
I thank you.
Now, Jill, we're talking to Jill
3LO's rock and roll aficionado was John Cook. Here's a clip from Cookie's last program.
Box Hill, Willydale Lane train, stopping all stations, the Warburton and Hillsville.
Oh, what am I laughing at? I should be weeping. Before I went into radio, I wanted to become an announcer on the Box Hill Railway Station.
You nearly made it, John.
With Sam Fontana and Pat Dynamite Harrison and Ratty Ratcliffe and all those wonderful guys back in 1962. I never quite got there. Anyway, it's all changed. It hasn't got the same romantic feeling that the subway used to have with the stalagmites and stalactites and buskers like Ian Allen and Rowan Forster. Colin from Roeville and Glenda, thanks for phoning. We've got your request coming up. Chris has got it lined up there in a sec. David, Margaret, Kathleen, Ian, North Clayton, Len from Sorrento, Claire and the Ashdown family at Ivanhoe. And so many people. Rowan just said that the switchboard is almost self-destructing. Murray's out there doing a great job. And 31 minutes to go. Let's get with the All-Stars.
And the magic and mayhem of the Could Have Been champions.
The top-notch footy insticators and pontificators set the agenda for the season's ender. I give you the Could Have Been champions. Let's hear it. Woof, 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 woof. Woof. Come on, Jeffy.
Thank you very, very much, Uncle Doug, for that extra special grand final day intro. And we're here in the 3LO Mobile. Great to have you with us. I'm Jeff Richardson. This is the Could Have Been champions. Good morning, Tony Leonard.
Yes, good morning, Jeff.
Ian Cover.
Yes, good morning, Richo, and good morning, Could Have Been's co-leagues, and good morning, footy fans.
Simon Whelan.
Good morning, all.
We'll move on to the next caller. Go ahead, please. You're talking to Tony.
Hello.
Hello, Tony.
Yes. Who's this?
Tony, it's Digger.
Yes. Where are you, Digger?
I'm out on, I don't know, I'm out near the Hilton.
Now, Digger, take it easy, because I'm quite sure that Collingwood will win today.
Oh, Tony.
All right.
I can't take it easy. It doesn't matter what happens to me today. I've been to the top of the mountain. I've looked over the other side, Tony.
And what was it like?
It was quite high up there.
Had an RHG,
a red hot go,
and took a good...
And the wonderful Mary Adams. Her chatty afternoon program was a must.
Hello, this is Mary Adams with you, and a warm welcome to Desert Island Discs. And today we welcome to our familiar island, it is now after several weeks, Sir Eric Pearce, who, apart from a host of other things, has always been recognised for his sartorial elegance. How are you going to manage to stay as immaculate as you are at the moment on a desert island?
haven't the faintest idea, but I hope I can take a companion with me who will have the wherewithal to cover my exposed parts.
We'll allow you to discuss that a little later. Well, let's start delving into the music which you're going to take to the island with you.
To get the rules straight first, may we, Mary?
Yes.
I think you told me, did you not, that I'm allowed 6 records or somewhere around there?
We may not get to play them all, but we'll give people a taste of what you're taking.
And I'm allowed to take 1 book, right?
You are.
And allowed to take 1 person.
You are.
Thank you, Mary.
And of course, another old friend, Clive Stark. Clive rarely got ruffled, so the last moments of his interview with the English entertainers Hinge and Brackett are very special.
I'd like to thank you both so much for taking the trouble to come in and join us this morning. And
It's a great pleasure. Great pleasure, Clive.
I do hope you'll enjoy your stay in Australia.
Thank you, and may I say how lovely of you to have decorated up your studio so prettily.
Well, yes,
for us coming in, all this chintz and all this velvet and the flowers and things.
It's the least we could do.
Really, it's rather lovely. It's
On
like
our
being in
limited
a bit of
ABC
old
budget.
Melbourne.
But the thought of having the studio redecorated to make you feel at home was the least we could do.
Well, I think it's terribly kind. That carpet down the front steps. Yes. Lovely touch, wasn't it? Very nice. Yes.
And Dr. Hinge, thank you.
Thank you, Clive.
Dame Hilda, thank you.
Thank you very much, Clive, dear.
The lovely ladies were, of course, 2 gentlemen, George Logan and Patrick Fife.
And didn't the studio sound beautiful?
That was one of the last broadcasts from our old home broadcast house,
Now we're in a grand new studio complex at South Bank,
where the sound of Melbourne goes on.
ABC News with Rowan Forster. Good morning.
Good morning to you. 25 to 6. Hello, I'm Lynn Holtain. Robert Ullman joins me, whale watcher and artist. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, Australia.
This is AM. I'm Peter Cave. Good morning.
Peter Costello, good morning.
Good morning, John.
Also this morning, Daniel Grollo unveils plans for a high-rise tower on Melbourne's waterfront.
Hello, John Highfield. Welcome to the world today.
Good afternoon, Derek Gill with you on 3LO until 4 o'clock.
A collective noun for a group of honest politicians.
I'm sorry, there isn't one, Lou. A couple. A couple.
Good afternoon, I'm Terry Laidler with you through until 6 this afternoon.
What sort of things would you like to say to the new franchisees of Melbourne's tram system about the way they should run Melbourne's trams into the future?
Good evening and welcome to PM. I'm Mark Colvin. Among our stories tonight...
Peter Clark with you right through till 10, the Thursday edition of the evening show. Great to have your company.
Can I ask you a few really basic questions and be a klutz here?
Please do.
What is a gene?
A gene is basically...
22 minutes past 11. This is The Nightlife with Tony Delroy. We are talking movies.
Good morning and welcome to Saturday morning breakfast in Melbourne.
Clever architects can actually get sun into the building.
Can they? Anywhere?
Yes.
Theo in Cheltenham has a lawn question for us. Hi, Theo.
Good morning. Hello, Theo. Hello, Kevin.
Dogs positively love having their tails chopped off when they're 3 days old. So says the tail choppers.
And welcome back to Grandstand. Karen Ty with you in the studio. Hope you're having a good start to your day.
Kick off the ground! Oh, boy! You don't kick those, even in the wildest of wild greens.
G'day, this is Macca. Hello.
Good morning, Ian. It's Neville Holt. I'm speaking to you from sunny Broome in Western Australia.
You're just rubbing it in, are you, in your sunny Broome?
You're with John Fain here at the Shrine of Remembrance, right through until the end of the march, around about 12:30, 1:45.
Was the theatre sister, and we went through very busy periods with soldiers coming via helicopter.
Fleming in and bowls. Klusner hits back past the bowler. There's a mix-up. Oh, there could be a run-out. There will be a run-out. Oh. It's a tie. Australia is in the final.
Murray's in town today and joins us in the studio. So, Murray, nice to see you.
Thank you very much. It's lovely for you to see me again.
Thank you, Mary Black. I know you've got to rush off for other commitments, but have you got time for one more song for us?
This is one called One Way Donkey Ride.
There you may stand in your splendour and jewel.
We're going to enter a door called Members Private. I've just come into the billiard room.
Okay.
Trevor, what are you doing playing billiards in here?
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Lynn. As you said, I'm up in a helicopter just above City Lincoln and traffic is flowing marvellously.
This is a brilliant run here at 9:15, so...
it certainly is. Now, Kim Edwards, I've been looking as we've been driving along. We're just about to go under a scanner here. Ken Daly, we get... beeped as we go under the scanner.
What's that hammer you've got there, Frank?
I was going to ask you to recreate that first job you had of smashing 78s at the EMI offices.
I should tell you, listeners, that Frank is handing Barry an LP and a hammer.
Record. Oh, a hammer in my right, record in my left, microphone between. Here we go.
Wonderful.
Barry Humphries, of course, showing how to break old 78s on nostalgia on Sunday Arts.
Thank goodness he didn't get his hands on any of the treasures we've been playing.
Frank, what an adventure. It's been great wandering through 75 years of 3LO nostalgia. And our apologies to all the people and programs we had to miss out. And our thanks to everybody who made this possible. How will we finish?
Well, Sean, what about a replay of Paul Keating opening our new building in November 1994, followed by a cheeky station close down from our old friend Rupert Hazell.
It is more than a pleasure to be here. I mean, to see these complexes put together, and to know that it's such a tremendously strong underpinning for the ABC, and to know what the ABC has meant to Australia down through the decades, and to know now, as we see the sort of threat of homogenisation heading towards us, just how centrally important this unique cultural institution is. To be here at South Bank in this year, when these changes are right upon us, there's a sense of poignancy about it, which I think we all feel and understand. So Anita and I are delighted to be here today, and it is with very great pleasure indeed that I declare the South Bank complex open. Thank you.
VLO Melbourne. What shall we do now?
Oh, they've had enough. After all, they only pay 27 and 6 a year.
Right, VLO Melbourne, closing down. Good night, everybody, and go to sleep. Done my last train in again.